So usually it's going by now because, that's the kind of thing we discover that is,
Oh, it just jumps in and we just
yeah,
look
and
like,
we
hey,
look like morons.
what's going
So
on here?
I think it's working. So good morning. Welcome to Guest Thursday. Let me get to where I want to be. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well too. And
Considering you got up at 4 o'clock this
yeah,
morning.
I've had a very busy day already, but I got a lot done. So we're really, really excited to welcome our friend and fellow person on this funny journey, both of sobriety and life, Lonna Whiting. Hi, Lonna.
Hello, good morning.
How are you?
I am doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day and feeling good.
I know. Some people's winter is this.
I know.
Well, okay, now that's depressing. So,
well, I was fine.
right. Yeah, geez, thanks, Dana.
Sorry. Some people have been in winter for months. Does that make you feel better?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. So Lonna, you and I go way, way back, actually. I mean, we knew of each other kind of before we knew each other. Were you an undergrad or in grad school when we first met, do you suppose?
I was thinking about that the other day, and I think I was in undergrad because you were teaching, you were an adjunct for the ESL program at MSUM.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's like 20 years ago. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shocking. So we have this long writing history, and then you came in with us last January, or this past January, and helped clean up and edit that 9-week series that Maz and I did. And it's so funny, as a writer, you forget that editing is an important piece, and that sometimes somebody can come in and it's about taking out one word or changing the sentence structure of one paragraph. And suddenly it goes from, yeah, that's good, to, wow, how did I not catch that? So it was a perfect way to use you in your professional capacity and to improve our content, which was turned out to be really pretty popular. So I was very happy for many reasons that we had run that past you and that you'd made the edits that you made. So thanks for that. I don't think I've seen you in person to tell you that.
Yeah, no, thank you for allowing me in on that journey. It was such a great series, and it was such an honor to be able to do a little bit of interior decorating on it, as I call it.
That's a good
That's
way
a
to put
great
it.
way to put it. So, Lonna, we have you on today because you just recently celebrated your 800th day of sobriety. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Now, what is that, like 2.5 years? Kind of?
2 years and 2 months,
Okay.
something. Math is bad for me.
Yep,
so.
not my strength. After I said 2 years, I thought, dang, I hope that part's even right.
Because part of your brain says, well, it's you got to do it by 265, and then the rest of your brain says, sod it.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But your version, your journey to sobriety is very, very different than the one that Maz had. So maybe you just want to, kind of give us the elevator speech journey to what got you to 800 and some days ago.
Yeah. Well, if we go really far back, I was always an enthusiastic drinker. Even in late high school, I discovered that alcohol made me what I thought was a more interesting person, and got me in feeling a little bit more extroverted, and I could talk to guys and not feel like I was going to puke or something like that. So alcohol did what a lot of things that people drink to do. Like, it made me feel relaxed. It made me outgoing. It made me feel like I was more attractive, et cetera, which was all ridiculous now looking back. But in my 20s, I was still, was a bartender at Nick's office in Moorhead for a few years. And still drank pretty regularly, enthusiastically, but it wasn't something that I would have considered problem drinking by any means. But still, probably drinking more than I should. And then when I was 31, my mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And that really became a tipping point for me in my drinking, because it was drinking was the easiest and fastest way for me to get out of the trauma of dealing with my mom's illness.
Because you're her primary caretaker.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Granted, she's in a facility and has,
Right.
a lot of great staff helping her. But yes, I am technically her. I have power of
Yeah.
attorney and all of those things. So, that was a really big trauma in my life, and so the drinking really accelerated for me at that point. I went from, going out for happy hours and having a couple glasses of wine to going out to happy hours and having a few glasses of wine, and then going to Happy Harry's later and grabbing another bottle of wine for home. And I would sit and drink at home by myself until I blacked out or passed out, basically, in front of the television every night. Sometimes, I would pass out on Kevin while we were watching TV. It was
Kevin and I could share many stories about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and these are things I don't really remember. But so my mom's disease, she's still alive. So it's been a long time. So the first about 5 years of her Alzheimer's journey, the drinking got more and more. And I felt like crap about myself. But yet I couldn't figure out really why, or what was making me feel so anxious and so desperate and so miserable about myself. And when I realized that it was actually the drinking, the thing I was doing to make myself feel better, that it was the drinking that was really making me feel worse. And that's when I decided, like, well, I think that this is a problem for me. Like, I think that I should probably not drink anymore. Like, that might be a good idea for me. So, in 2018, the summer of 2018, a few things happened. My mother stopped recognizing me, and that was really hard. So I kind of drank through that experience. And then my very first pet, a cat named Hero, she got really sick, and then we had to say goodbye to her. And I drank through that. And then I thought, I am constantly hungover. I am overweight. My blood pressure's high, and I'm not even 40, and my cholesterol's high. And I just did this huge, like, physical, emotional, and spiritual assessment of myself, and was like, okay, this is it. This is done. Like, I can't do this anymore. So I flirted with the idea of going to AA, but I was just very uncomfortable with the idea of labeling myself with a disease or as an alcoholic. And so I turned to the internet and looked for some programs that were for more kind of progressive and for women, and that took a different approach to alcohol use disorder. And I discovered Annie Grace. She has a program called the Alcohol Experiment, and a book called This Naked Mind. And it takes you through 30 days of discussion around the science behind what happens when you drink alcohol. It discusses things like alcohol is basically ethanol and what we put in our cars to fuel them, which really, it's just practical facts about alcohol and using it that just grossed me out about drinking. And so I read that and I really resonated with her, and then eventually discovered another program called Tempest by Whitaker, and she's pretty radically feminist about her approach to being alcohol free, and that's where I learned about not drinking being an act of social resistance, where now I started thinking at this point in my journey that not drinking was telling society that I do not need alcohol to relax. I do not need it to unwind. I do not need it to socialize. I can do that without alcohol. And so viewing that in the viewing my alcohol use in the lens of a resistance toward a social norm made me feel empowered to continue not drinking.
Yeah, I love that.
In
That's
a
really cool.
nutshell.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. I mean, if it were something that I needed to really figure out how to manage, that would be the only way I think I could do it too, because everything else would feel like I was being bossed. And as everyone who knows me knows, I cannot be bossed. So as a social resistance, like, no, society, you do not boss me, I boss you.
I mean,
that's very appealing to me.
It's a great example of what works for you, works for you. I mean, I guess I had to be bossed into being sober.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's also the only option you were given.
Well, and I think I think for me, it probably would have been the best one, and it clearly has worked so far.
Yeah. So, thank you for sharing that, Lonna.
Yeah,
That's a really moving story, because, you know, in Maz's case, Maz can't really pinpoint why or how he started drinking.
No.
I think it just got the better of him.
I think
But
it did
in
too.
your case, I think you have kind of one of those moments where, you know, you may have already been on a not great path,
Right.
but that diagnosis was a real abrupt corner turner for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really fascinating, because I think a lot of people get those. You know, what happens when you get that terrible phone call, you suddenly get fired, you get a health scare, whatever. We have a lot of those in our lives, and how you choose to deal with them is really important. So I'm curious to know, because you and I have similar jobs in the sense of, in a regular time, there's a lot of happy hours in our lives. You know, I spend a lot of time meeting with donors for a glass of wine. So how do you navigate that? Because I think a lot about kind of being done drinking, because it's such a small part of my life. It just feels like something I could pretty easily give up. But that piece kind of stops me. So how do you navigate that?
That's a great question. And it can be really tricky. For a long time, I just avoided socializing and networking other than what I could do on LinkedIn or virtually. So actually COVID has been really helpful in that sense, that it's kind of stalled any kind of in-person networking that we do. But I just made the decision that I would be really open about my drinking, and I tell people, you know, if I'm at a social event and they say, "Oh, do you want a glass of wine, or do you want a drink?" I just say, "No, I don't drink anymore." Or, you know, and if sometimes people are really curious about it, sometimes it's not a big deal at all. Like they don't even question it, which is really refreshing. But so every once in a while I'll get, "Oh, are you an alcoholic?" Or yeah.
Oh, that's
and
a
you know,
Band-Aid ripper.
right. Like, and I probably bring it on myself by saying, "No, I don't drink anymore." You know,
Sure, I suppose.
so, you know, part of it's my own fault for fueling that fire, but
I think it's because they think they're uncomfortable. They've probably never been out somewhere with someone who doesn't drink.
Right, exactly, because it's just such a thing that we do.
It's such a given. Oh my gosh, the non-drinkers of the world are such a minority, whether it's by choice or circumstance or whatever. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm open about it and I talk about it because I do think that um the more we do talk about it, I think the more people question their own relationship with alcohol and whether they have a problem or they worry that they do or they definitely do. The more that they see that there are people out there like me or like Maz, and that there are options on ways to approach your decision to not drink, um, I think the more comfortable people will be around non-drinkers or become a non-drinker themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you miss anything about drinking?
I would no. I think I romanticize it sometimes. Like I think about, oh, when my partner and Kevin and I eventually get to go to Italy again, whenever that might be. Oh, how am I going to have, a fresh baguette and a cheese plate without a glass of wine next to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and that scares me a little bit with traveling and being in a place where wine is a beautiful tradition and it's of like the highest quality in the world. And um, I find myself romanticizing things like that. But what I always come back to is, do you really want to like screw shit up again? Do you really want to have a hangover ever again in your life? Because that's like the most disgusting feeling in the world.
Yeah.
So I always take that romanticizing of alcohol and I put some logic behind it. Like, these are the reasons why you quit. This is why it's a problem for you. This is why you shouldn't do this. And talking it myself out of that romanticized vision of drinking on an Italian vista overlook and eating fresh olives, and like the olives are going to taste just as good without the wine.
They
And
are.
if memory serves, I've only been to Italy once, but even their mineral water tastes fantastic. So
Yeah.
there must be something the way it gets filtered through the volcanic rock or something, but it tastes wonderful. So when I finally take Dana to Italy, I'm looking forward to the mineral water, and I think
Yes.
that and some bread, I'll be fine.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's what I'll do too. The mineral water will be good.
It's interesting because I find myself sometimes romanticizing it too for us,
Mhm.
thinking about that. And we've been lucky to do a lot of traveling since Maz has been sober and it's been fine. But I'm definitely aware of, that we used to share a bottle of wine maybe over a beautiful dinner or something. And now if I want a glass of wine, I just order a glass of wine and it's fine. But it is easy to sort of look back on those picture moments and be like, oh, maybe we should try it, and then you sort of have that like wave of freezing cold tsunami water hit you of, what do you mean? You want to risk this for a freaking glass of wine? Don't be stupid.
Right.
So yeah, I think we kind of have literature in Hollywood to blame for romanticizing alcohol in many, many ways. But they take the blame for a lot of the things that I think are problematic in our culture.
Yeah, I mean it's like cigarette smoking was,
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right.
We don't see that as much anymore, but when we see somebody sexy taking a drag or taking a sip of something, you're like,
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's incredibly influential in a very negative way.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Lonna, you want to add? Can you tell us your website and how people can get to you and what you can do for them if they're interested?
Yeah, so I am a freelance writer and editor, and I do a lot of content marketing, project management, strategic marketing planning for all sorts of companies, nonprofits, startups, healthcare industry is really big. And you can find my information at lonna.co, LONNA.co. That's my website. And then I'm also on Twitter at Lonna Whiting, LONNAWHITING. That's my handle for Twitter and Instagram. So you can find me on there. And then I also write a few actually, but I'm writing more articles on Medium that approach or address my drinking journey and how to find approaches that work for you. So
Yeah, I've read everything you've put on Medium because A, you're a beautiful writer, and B, I'm just fascinated by your journey since I've only experienced one personal journey.
Yeah.
It's really, there is an intimacy to your writing that I think is a little bit like our journey too. And that really is a powerful way to go through it and have a sense of what it's like without having to do it yourself, which I think is good for everybody, and your journey, Lonna, are so different, and yet the commonalities are very, very similar. Kevin and I'm sure could go on and on about the things that only he and I really remember from those years leading up to it. And that's its own thing. That's a different conversation. But mostly we wanted to have you on because I love that you found your own kind of kick-ass approach to managing addiction and alcohol and to thriving and being your very best, most extraordinary self, Lonna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming on. And we will talk to you soon. Who knows if we'll see you soon, but we'll definitely see you all over social media and everybody else. Thanks for watching. We will include the books and the other content that Lonna gave so that you can do that searching if you are interested as well. Have a great day and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.